poppin', people? How are you all doing? As some of you might know, I recently went back home on a trip to the UK. I vlogged some of it as well, so I'll link in the iCard some of those videos if you haven't checked them out already. Now, when you've lived in a different country for a few years, going back home, you definitely experience a reverse culture shock because you've got so used to your new life. Living in Singapore, there's lots of things that I'm used to and have just become the norm for me, so when I go back to the UK, these weird things like shock me and surprise me that never used to before. It's a really interesting experience, and I wanted to share a few of those things with you guys today. I have a really long list. I don't know if I'm going to get through all of them, but I'm going to try and mention as many as I can. So if you want to know what reverse culture shocks I experienced, let's get started. Okay, the first one. Heathrow Airport is an absolute abomination. It is awful. If you're ever traveling to Heathrow Airport, it is not a fun experience. I got so used to Changi Airport that Changi Airport is just like an absolute dream. It's the best airport you ever experience in the world. It is so smooth sailing, so quick. And when you arrive in Heathrow, back in your home country, the worst thing is that you have to queue up. There is just always queues. It's so unorganized, it's so chaotic, and it's just not a nice coming home experience. I'm so glad I don't have to deal with that all the time, but it is a nightmare. I think it's an age thing, but as I get older, I've appreciate like architecture and things more, and architectural design. And you know how much I am obsessed with shop houses and colonial architecture in Singapore. I started to really pay attention more to the architecture back home, which is really weird for me. You just like find yourself like looking at things in more detail and being like, oh, that building's actually really nice. Like I never properly looked at that before. And I think that's just kind of when you're used to being in a certain place for so many years, you don't really take in your surroundings as much. But this time it was like I was looking at it for the first time. So that was really interesting. Groceries. Oh my god. I took a trip or two to Tesco. Oh guys, I wish I could take you all along with me. It's just the best experience. Everything was so cheap. Groceries were so cheap. There was strawberries for £1.50, and you know in Singapore strawberries, you have to be rich to buy strawberries in Singapore. Like they're gonna cost you at least $15 to buy strawberries here, but back home £1.50. I bought a whole carton of strawberries and all these different kind of fruits and vegetables. Just all the produce was so cheap because obviously we grow it in the UK, so we're not paying crazy inflated prices, and that was amazing. Even like snacks and healthy options, everything just seems so much cheaper. That's one thing I really miss, is the price of groceries. Another one was not having to pay service charge when I was eating out or going for drinks, and that was really weird for me. I'm so used to paying like plus here in Singapore, but no extra VAT in the UK. That was quite nice actually. So if I was buying something for £5, I was gonna pay £5 only. Another thing I noticed was there's such a lack of selection when it comes to lunchtime food. In the UK, we often just grab a sandwich or something really carby like a pastry or a pie, and I just could not deal with it. I was like, I cannot eat any more bread. Bread was the option every lunchtime. Like my dad was like, can I get you some toast? Can I make you a sandwich? And I was just like, Dad, I cannot eat any more bread. It's really unlikely that you could just get like a hot meal for lunch in the UK. It's just all like cold. It's salads, sandwiches, wraps. That's all you can really get. Okay, another thing was that we have to drive everywhere in the UK. You can get public transport, but because our country is so huge, you can't necessarily get public transport easily within an hour to the other side of the country. Like it's just not realistic. So we drove a lot. We did a few little road trips, and something I didn't realize that I missed so much was just driving like from town to town or village to village. You come out of one village, you be in another one, and it was all brand new, and it was a whole new town to explore. I didn't realize how much of the UK there is to explore compared to Singapore, because once you've done a few neighborhoods in Singapore, you've kind of done them. Because they're so much smaller, there's not too much more to explore, because you're like, yeah, I've done that now, I've seen it. You can't really walk out of one area and walk into a brand new area that you've never seen before. So I think that's something that I really missed. I didn't realize I missed it, but once I was exposed to it back home, I was like, wow, this is amazing. Like there's so much to explore. I've never been to this place before, let's go check it out. And you could just spend all day going town to town exploring new places. So that's something that I've found really interesting, and I really enjoyed doing that. The next one is a big one. I actually just did a video all about a plastic beach cleanup I did in Singapore. I'll link that up in the iCards if you haven't seen it already. But this is the topic of recycling. We have been recycling, I would say, in the UK for a good 10 years now. Around 10 years ago, the council provided all of our houses with recycling bins to put in our house. So glass, plastic, paper, food waste. Not only that, there was supermarkets decided to ban all plastic bags. So no plastic bags are available unless you buy them. This cut down our plastic use in the UK by almost 90%. When I went shopping in the UK, there was no plastic bags. So if I didn't bring my own bag along, like a canvas bag, I have to carry it out. And you see people just carrying their groceries out of the shop into their cars, and I was just like, wow, this plastic movement is huge. No one is using plastic anymore. But when you come back to Singapore, after being exposed to that, you're just like, oh my god. Single usage of plastic in Singapore is a big problem. Like, they're really far behind in the recycling scene, and Singapore government is still trying to figure out how we can best recycle our plastic and things like that. But it really hit home, and so that's why I've made a conscious decision now to stop accepting or taking plastic straws in Singapore. I am also taking my own flasks to hawker centres, getting the coffee that way. So I really hope you guys will consider thinking about that a bit more. It was definitely a shock for me when I came back from the UK. I was just like, wow, we are so far behind. So yeah, it's something for you guys to consider. I really hope you will. This one's kind of funny. So obviously I'm used to hearing Singlish all the time. Not only hearing Singlish, but sometimes having a language barrier with the older generation. You know, we'll talk in very basic English. I talk in more broken English, so it's easier for Singaporeans to understand me. So what was really weird for me when I went home is hearing people talk English just in the way that I would usually speak. It's like you hear people speak the way that you speak, and I was just like, oh my god, everyone sounds like me, and they're having like not elaborate conversations, but the way that the English language was being used was just like really interesting for me to hear. There's nothing quite like having a conversation in your mother tongue language. Again, it's something I didn't realise that I missed, but when I was exposed to it again, I was like, wow, this is really nice. Another thing was going out to eat, and so many times I'd be like waiting for the waiter and I'd almost raise my hand. And I was like, it's fine to like raise your hand, but in Singapore I'd like hold my hand up to get the waiter's attention. Now if I did that bit at home, they'd be like, what are you doing? And it would also probably be considered quite rude. So there were so many times I just wanted to do it because it's so much easier. Like in Singapore, I'm just gonna raise my hand, you know that I want you to come over and I can order my food. But in the UK, it's kind of like a waiting game. It's like, oh, can I order? Thanks. That was really weird to get used to. The thing is, I just talked about Singapore so much, I feel like, when I went home. And I was talking about it all the time to my friends and family, like, oh, in Singapore we do this, or in Singapore we do that. So I think I was talking about Singapore probably a bit too much. It probably got quite annoying, but Singapore means so much to me, so I found myself doing that a lot. Another weird thing to get used to was having no aircon. Instead of aircon, we had radiators. So usually if I go in my room, the first thing I look for is the aircon remote, turn it on. There was no aircon in the UK. It was the other way around because it was a little bit chilly. I was like, Mom, can I turn the heating on? Which means, can we turn the radiators on because I am cold. So that was really weird to get used to that as well. No more aircon, just radiators. All right, guys, I think I'm gonna wrap it up there. I've probably mentioned far too many things, but I hope this video was interesting for you. If you've experienced the same kind of thing, if you've been living in a different country, I would love you to comment down below. Let me know what your reverse culture shocks were, because I think it's just so interesting. As always, be sure to give this video a big thumbs up if you enjoyed it. If you are new to my channel, I would love you to hit that big red button below, subscribe to the channel, become part of the family. I upload new videos every week. Thank you guys for watching as always, and I'll see you in the next one.